Time now for another In the Legal Know with Vincent J. Russo. And today, Vincent is talking about legal consequences of home ownership. He says many people do not realize the impact that the title of your home has on ownership. And yeah, you're going to explain that now. Welcome, Vincent.
Welcome. I'm thrilled to be here. And so, yeah, it's really surprising. People own homes and then they don't realize how they own it and what it means. So it's really important, the starting point being the deed. You have a deed to your home. And so with that, home ownership is really, there are legal consequences to it. So who owns the property? You know, the deed will say who the owner is, what property is owned, so there'll be a description of the property. And then there may be restrictions on ownership where you can't transfer it without the authority of the other co-owner, or there may be an easement on the property. So it's important as a starting point, look at the deed and make sure you're clear about who owns the property. And if you can't find the deed, don't panic. You can go to the county clerk's office and get a copy.
That's the first thing I did yesterday when I saw what we were talking about. I went home and said, do we know where our deed is? Okay. Right. So let's start with the basic forms of ownership.
Okay. So two basic forms of ownership. One is you own it solely in your name. Jane buys a piece of property. She owns 100% of it. She can do what she wants with it. But when she passes, it's subject to probate. Or tenants in common. This is where you have multiple owners, let's say Jane and Jack, and they own it together, let's say 50-50, so that they have shares of ownership in the property, and when either one of them passes away, it's subject to probate. And we know that probate is a process where you have to file the will in court, and it takes time to have an executor appointed, and it costs money, and so avoiding probate can be a plus.
Okay, so next, how can someone, are there solutions to that? How do you avoid probate?
Sure, there are a number of options, and so it's about how the property is owned. So first, joint ownership with right of survivorship. So John and Jane can own property together, and it can say with right of survivorship, which means when one passes away, the other becomes 100% owner. Or it could be transferred from a parent to a child where the parent retains a life estate, the right to live in the house as long as they're alive. And when they pass away, the child automatically becomes the owner, avoids probate. Transferring the property into a revocable living trust or an irrevocable trust avoids probate. And then lastly, transfer on death deeds, where it's kind of like a brokerage account where you say, when I pass away, here's the beneficiary. That last option is not available in all states, and there are some restrictions with it. So I'm not a fan of that one myself.
Okay, mark that down, everybody.
I like the joint with right of survivorship or transferring it to a revocable living trust.
Okay.
But once you add someone's name on the deed, now you're exposing yourself to, if they have problems, then they become your problems.
Okay, not all states are the same either, right? Like community property states, tell me about that.
Community property states. There are 9 of them in the country. Most of them are in the South and the West Coast. And that's where there are marital rights built into the law. And so when people buy property in a community property state, it's important to understand the rights of each spouse. And so there could be automatic transfer from one spouse to the other, avoiding probate as well. So there you'd want to speak to an attorney in that community property state.
Okay, so you said there are 9 of them.
Yeah, so snowbirds, for example, may own property in Arizona as a vacation home. That's a community property state.
Okay. Okay, so people look, some of the factors that when we're choosing our options.
Let's talk about 3 factors. One is marital status. So if you're married, and I think there's another, yes. So if you're married, you have to think through, do you want it owned only in one of the spouse's names, or do you want to own it joint? And there's special laws in place with married couples who own it jointly. It's called tenants by the entirety, and there are certain legal rights that come with that. So just understanding the options there. Liability, as I was mentioning before, if you add someone's name on the deed, if they're sued and they have a creditor claim against them, now you're exposing your property to that claim. Or if you want to sell the property, you may need their signature. So you got to be really careful about what you're doing, which leads to the third factor. What is your estate planning goals? What are you trying to achieve? How do you want to leave your property out to family or friends or loved ones later when you pass away? So all of that plays into it, where you really would want to speak to an experienced estate planning attorney and talk about the options so that you can make a good decision about how you own your property.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, always tax implications with everything we do. What are they here?
Yes, so just real quickly, there are property tax implications, so like a senior exemption or a veteran's exemption. You transfer property, you may lose your exemption. So you got to be careful. Capital gains taxes, if you sell your property while you're alive. If you add someone on the deed, it may end up costing more in taxes. And estate taxes, where you would, it often is a benefit to keep the property in your estate, so there's a step up in basis, so when it's later sold, you save capital gains taxes. So taxes play into this. You just have to kind of work through it with your counselor.
Okay, and what about the impact if Medicaid, long-term plan?
Yeah, that's so important. So many seniors will think about, how do I protect my home if I want to qualify for Medicaid? So with Medicaid, if you live in your home or have an intent to return home, it's exempt for eligibility purposes, but it could be subject to estate recovery. So you'd want to do some planning with that home. Life estates, where you transfer the property and retain the right to live there, or transferring it to a Medicaid asset protection trust, are ways of protecting your home so you never lose it, and it's protected for your family if you have to go on Medicaid.
Okay. I know, I mean, there's a lot here, obviously, for everybody to digest, but you always offer resources on your website where they can go and read about it a little bit more, maybe have more questions.
Sure, and we have complimentary guides on our website that can be very helpful at vjrussolaw.com. is the website, or you can always call us.
Call you, Vinny.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, keep your phone handy. Thank you so much, as always.
My
We
pleasure.
will see you next week.